So I want to talk about a experience I had in the distant past, and this one was my experience with mixing DMT with ketamine. And in this time, I believe I was coming down off of the ketamine by the time that I actually smoked the DMT, so I don't think I was peaking on the ketamine. But this was back in the beginning of 2013, and I was hanging out with my friend who was also in the rave scene, and he was actually like 15 at the time, and he was doing IM ketamine injections, and he actually had a full injection kit in his drawer and stuff. And it was weird how he was able to hide that from his parents, but it's just funny that he was so young and he was already pretty hardcore with ketamine. But that was the rave scene back then, and it made a lot of really young kids go pretty hardcore pretty quickly. So he was also smoking DMT with me, and it was funny because him and my other buddy who was with me when we were doing it, they smoked a pretty big bowl first. But I remember that all of a sudden, once they smoked it, it seemed like it didn't hit them at all, but they were like, oh my god, that was so crazy. And they seemed like they were just kind of faking it, or it was some sort of joke that was being played on me. And I should mention that during this time I was pretty much really deep in my psychotic episode, so I was thinking that they were, I guess, playing a trick on me or something. And my perspective kind of felt like the Truman Show, if you understand that. So I almost felt like they were able to sort of suppress the experience and not even have it, and then just sort of pretend and act like they had a trip. But it was a really weird thing. Like, normally that's not the kind of reaction people have from it, but I guess maybe my perspective was skewed at that point, I think. And anyways, I ended up trying it next after they basically said, oh, that was amazing, and just handed it off to me. So I took a pretty big dose, and I remember I was still coming down from ketamine, and I believe the ketamine that I had was nasally ingested. So I wasn't injecting it at that point, but I think I did injections afterwards. And when I smoked it, it felt very different. This was a very completely different DMT trip than I've ever had with anything else, because normally with DMT, it sends me into a world that is kind of landscapey, and it's almost like an Egyptian carnival, as I've explained it before. And I'm usually out of body and feel as if I'm walking through this place or being kind of guided through it. But this time it was a lot different. I was seeing what I felt as if it was something very basic, something very simplistic, but it felt like I was looking at some sort of blueprints to the world, or some sort of script of some sort that basically built reality in some way. And I remember when I hit the bowl, I kind of just sat back and put my hands across my head, like on the bed like that. And what I was seeing was so bizarre. I would see these very basic structures. They were almost like construction equipment, but construction robots. And it was almost crane-like. They were kind of cranes, but they kind of looked like wrenches. And I was seeing basically this grid on in the center of my vision, and with these very simplistic cranes or screwdrivers or wrenches, and they were kind of moving objects around. It seemed very basic, yet at the same time felt very complex and very overwhelming, but not in an overwhelming sense that it was a difficult experience for me. This was actually one of the most blissful experiences that I've ever had. I felt like I was just lying on a cloud of I wouldn't say love, but I would just say relaxation. It was complete relaxation, which is very strange because usually my DMT trips are anything but relaxing. They're usually very hectic and very hard for me to endure. But this time I was just laying back and watching this thing, and I kind of got enveloped by it in a way, and it was just it wasn't an out-of-body experience. It was just I was watching this thing go about with its build, I guess, and I just didn't really think much of it other than that it was an extremely blissful experience. I would love to have an experience like that again. It was, I felt as if I gained a lot of insight from it in terms of what I thought it had to do with reality in the world. And I literally thought that it was some sort of blueprint to the simplicity and complexity of our universe. And somehow there was some sort of duality or paradox between those two concepts. So anything that is complex always gets boiled down to a very simplistic concept, and that was kind of the mentality that I was thinking about in this experience. I remember drawing it, and I remember drawing what I kind of saw it to be, and it wasn't very complex or very aesthetic looking when I actually drew it down, because it was just a doodle. And I tried to look around to see if I had the drawing, but I guess it got lost somewhere. But it just seemed so bizarre to me. It felt, the way that it made me feel was very pleasant, I think. I wish more DMT experiences were like that, but I was in a state of a strange psychotic episode where I was completely open to having the DMT experience and didn't really care what went down with me. I remember when I was doing the ketamine, I was trying to think that, you know, I was invincible to ketamine, and the ketamine didn't really affect me, or I was able to walk around in a K-hole. And that kind of extreme confidence gave me the ability to actually stand the ketamine experience at larger doses while I was just chilling at the rave. And I was able to converse with people in a way that I wasn't able to before, because I had such confidence in my ability to handle compounds. I thought it was that typical sort of God mode feeling that you feel that you're just invincible, and you feel like nothing can put you under or you know, make you just vegetabilized and not able to converse with people. I was very very extroverted in that situation, and it was a complete shift in my personality. I guess you could call it manic at that point, but I was completely different than I usually was, because I was usually very introverted and very shy, but this time I was very talkative and conversing with people in a way that I'd never done before. But I'm sure the ketamine really affected my DMT experience when I smoked it, because I'm not sure if that blissful feeling that I felt would be the same under normal circumstances, so just being sober and trying to smoke it. But again, it was a very pleasant experience, and I do wish that I could have those kinds of experiences again, just because they were so relaxing, and what I would want my DMT trips to be now, just because it felt as if I was uncovering a secret truth to the world, but it wasn't a truth that was going to kill me or anything. It was just a relaxing truth, and something that I could watch as if I was watching a TV. And that isn't to say that the trip wasn't intense. It was extremely intense, like a very intense experience, because I smoked a lot, I remember, and it just didn't phase me in the way that it usually phases me now, and I think that that's the main difference. And I'm hoping I could experience something like that again, because it was really beautiful, even though it was pretty simple. It's hard to really explain why I found it so aesthetic. Even if I showed you the drawings, it wouldn't really hold a candle to what I actually experienced, but maybe me just talking about it might make you guys resonate with some of the concepts that I'm speaking of here. But that's about it. That's what I wanted to share with you guys. If you guys want, I can share more about my ketamine experiences, specifically with IM injections, because I did a lot of that with my friend who was 15 at the time, and he was actually injecting me, so I was able to have a lot of experience with that kind of route of administration. But yeah, that's about it. I should finish this video with a portrait drawing of Billie Eilish that I recently finished, so I hope you guys, you know, appreciate that, and feel free to give me any criticisms or feedback that you guys feel about it. And if you're a new visitor here, consider subscribing because it does help me out a lot, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out.